What happens when the person you trust most becomes the person who tries to destroy you? This is about how quickly your entire life can be turned upside down by lies, and how hard you have to fight to reclaim the truth. If you've ever been falsely accused of something you didn't do, if you've ever had your reputation destroyed by someone you trusted, or if you've ever felt completely alone in a room full of people who believed lies about you, this story is for you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why the truth is worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Drop a comment right now telling me if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. I read every single comment. Now let's get into it. My name is Daniel Brooks, and this is the story of how my mentor tried to frame me for embezzlement, how I lost everything I'd worked for in a single day, and how I fought back to expose the real thief. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why the truth is worth fighting for, no matter the cost. I grew up in a small apartment on the south side of Chicago with my mom, Sarah Brooks. My father died when I was 7 years old, heart attack, sudden and devastating. One day he was teaching me how to throw a baseball in our tiny backyard, and the next day he was gone. Just like that. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. During the day, she was a receptionist at a dental office. At night, she cleaned office buildings downtown. I remember waiting up for her on school nights, doing my homework at the kitchen table while she came home exhausted at 11 p.m., smelling like industrial cleaner and cheap coffee. She never complained. Not once. Instead, she'd sit with me while I finished my math problems, quiz me on my spelling words, and remind me every single night. Daniel, integrity is the only thing no one can take from you. Work hard, be honest, and people will respect you. I believed her. I built my entire life on that principle. I wasn't the smartest kid in school, but I was persistent. I studied harder than everyone else, showed up early, stayed late, and never took shortcuts. When other kids were cheating on tests or plagiarizing papers, I did the work myself. When college applications came around, I didn't have connections or legacy admissions. I had a 4.0 GPA earned through sheer determination and scholarships funded by need, not privilege. I got into State University on a full academic scholarship. My mom cried when I opened that acceptance letter. It was the first time I'd seen her cry since my father's funeral. I majored in finance and economics, not because I loved numbers, but because I understood that financial security meant my mom wouldn't have to work 2 jobs anymore. It meant stability. It meant building something that couldn't be taken away as easily as my father had been taken from us. After graduation, I started at the bottom, literally the bottom. I was hired as a male clerk at Meridian Investment Group, one of the top investment firms in Chicago. Minimum wage, no benefits, delivering documents and coffee to people who wouldn't make eye contact with me in the elevator. But I didn't care. I was inside the building. I had access. I watched, I learned, and I worked harder than anyone else. Every morning, I'd arrive an hour early and read the financial reports that crossed my desk. I taught myself advanced Excel functions during lunch breaks. I volunteered for weekend projects that no one else wanted. When the financial analysts complained about data entry work, I'd offer to help, for free, after hours. People started noticing. Not many people, but the right people. After 2 years, I was promoted to junior analyst. After 3 more years, I became a full financial analyst with my own office, my own clients, and a salary that finally allowed my mom to quit her night cleaning job. I remember the day I told her she could retire from the dental office too. She was 62 years old, had worked since she was 16, and for the first time in her life, she didn't have to worry about money. I'd done that. Through honest work, through integrity, through doing exactly what she'd taught me. That's when I met Mr. Jonathan Grant. Mr. Grant was the senior managing director of the corporate accounts division. He was in his late 50s, silver hair always perfectly styled, expensive suits that probably cost more than I made in a month, and the kind of confidence that came from 30 years of success in high-stakes finance. He noticed my work on a particularly complex portfolio analysis and called me into his office one afternoon. "Brooks," he said, not looking up from his computer, "I've been reviewing your reports. You're thorough. More thorough than analysts I'm paying twice your salary." "Thank you, sir. I just try to." "I don't need the humble routine," he interrupted, finally looking at me. "I need competence, and you have it. I'm moving you to my direct team. You'll handle the Preston account, $60 million in assets, high-maintenance client, zero margin for error. Don't disappoint me. That was it. No handshake, no welcome to the team. Just expectation and opportunity. I didn't disappoint him. Over the next 18 months, I became Mr. Grant's go-to analyst. When clients had complex questions, he'd send me. When quarterly reports needed to be perfect, he'd assign them to me. When the board needed presentations for high-stakes meetings, I'd build them. Slowly, something shifted. Mr. Grant stopped treating me like an employee and started treating me like a protégé. He'd invite me to client dinners, introduce me to executives, share insights about navigating corporate politics. "You remind me of myself at your age," he told me once over drinks after a successful client pitch. "Smart, hungry, willing to do what others won't. You're going to go far here, Daniel. I'm going to make sure of it." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was a successful man giving me guidance. He was the mentor I'd never had after my father died. He was proof that integrity and hard work actually did lead somewhere. I'm thinking about everything felt like it was finally falling into place. I had a career I'd built through honest work. I had a mentor who believed in me. I had financial security and a future that looked brighter than anything I'd imagined growing up in that small apartment. But I didn't know that while I was building my career through integrity, Mr. Grant was building something else entirely. A carefully constructed trap that would use my reputation as cover for his crimes. I didn't know that every piece of trust I'd placed in him was being weaponized against me. I didn't know that in less than 6 months, everything I'd worked for would be destroyed in a single afternoon. But that's exactly what happened. It was a Tuesday morning in March when my world ended. I remember because I'd worn my new suit, the first truly expensive suit I'd ever bought for myself. Navy blue, tailored fit, the kind of suit that said, "I belong here." I walked into the office at 7:30 a.m., like always. Grabbed coffee from the break room, like always. Said good morning to Janet at reception, like always. Everything was normal. Until I got to my desk. My computer was locked. Not password locked, completely disabled. A bright red message on the screen. "Access denied. Contact at security." I called the IT help desk. "Hey, this is Daniel Brooks in corporate accounts. My system's showing an access denial message. Can you reset it?" There was a pause. A long pause. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to need to transfer you to HR." "HR? Why would?" Click. Hold music. My stomach dropped. Something was very wrong. Before HR could pick up, my office phone rang. Internal line. Mr. Grant's assistant. "Daniel, Mr. Grant needs to see you in his office immediately. Bring your ID badge and any company devices." "What's this about?" "Just come now, please." I walked to Mr. Grant's office in a daze. Other analysts were staring at me. People I'd worked with for years suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Whispers followed me down the hallway. When I entered Mr. Grant's office, he wasn't alone. Miranda Chun from HR was there. So was Paul Davidson, the company's general counsel. And 2 people I'd never seen before, suits with badges clipped to their belts. "Security? Police?" "Sit down, Daniel," Mr. Grant said, his voice completely different from the warm, mentoring tone I was used to. Cold. Formal. Distant. "What's going on?" "We've discovered a serious discrepancy in the company accounts," Miranda began, sliding a folder across the desk toward me. "Over the past 6 months, approximately $247,000 has been transferred out of client trust accounts through a series of unauthorized transactions." My heart was pounding. "Okay, that's obviously a serious problem, but why am I?" "The transactions were all initiated from your login credentials," Paul interrupted. "Your digital signature. Your access codes." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "That's impossible. I never." "We have the logs, Daniel," Mr. Grant said, and for the first time, I heard something in his voice that made my blood run cold. Not anger. Not disappointment. Satisfaction. He opened a laptop and turned it toward me. Spreadsheets. Transaction records. Timestamps. All showing my username, my employee ID, my digital authorization. Transfer after transfer. Small amounts at first, $3,000 here, $5,000 there. Then larger sums. $15,000. $30,000. All going to offshore accounts with names I'd never heard of. "This isn't me," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone is using my credentials. Someone hacked my account or cloned my access or—" "We've already considered that possibility," Paul said. IT conducted a full security audit. No evidence of unauthorized access. No signs of credential theft. The transactions were initiated from your workstation, during hours when building security shows you were in the office. Then the security logs are wrong. Or someone else used my computer. I would never. Several colleagues have also come forward, Miranda added, pulling out another folder. They've reported noticing suspicious behavior over the past few months. Staying late when no one else was around. Being secretive about your work. Acting defensive when asked about client accounts. What colleagues? Who said that? I was standing now, my hands on the desk. That's not true. None of that is true. The two security personnel stepped forward. One of them spoke for the first time. Mr. Brooks, we're going to need you to come with us. Am I being arrested? Not at this time, Paul said. But you're being placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. If the investigation confirms embezzlement, criminal charges will be filed. This is insane, I said, looking directly at Mr. Grant. Jonathan, you know me. You know I would never do this. Tell them. Tell them this is wrong. For a long moment, Mr. Grant just stared at me. Then he shook his head slowly, like he was disappointed in a child who'd broken his favorite toy. I trusted you, Daniel, he said quietly. I vouched for you. I recommended you for promotion. And this is how you repay that trust. I didn't do this. The evidence says otherwise. Then the evidence is wrong. One of the security officers put his hand on my shoulder. Mr. Brooks, you need to calm down and come with us. They escorted me out of Mr. Grant's office, past the rows of cubicles where my colleagues were watching, down the elevator to the ground floor lobby. People were staring. Some were whispering. One of the junior analysts I'd mentored actually laughed as I walked past. At security, they took my ID badge, my building access card, my company laptop, even the flash drive on my keychain. You'll be contacted by HR regarding the investigation process, the security supervisor said, handing me a paper with phone numbers and legal disclaimers. Do not attempt to access company systems remotely. Do not contact current employees about this matter. Do not return to this building without written authorization. Then they opened the door and let me out onto the street. I stood there in my expensive new suit, in the middle of downtown Chicago, on a Tuesday morning in March, with absolutely no idea what to do next. I called my mom from the sidewalk. Daniel, aren't you supposed to be at work? I couldn't speak. For a solid 30 seconds, I just held the phone while traffic rushed past me and people in suits hurried by on their way to jobs they still had. Daniel? Honey, what's wrong? Mom, I finally managed. Something's happened. Something really bad. That night, sitting at my kitchen table with legal documents spread around me, I tried to make sense of what had happened. The evidence against me was overwhelming. Too overwhelming. Too perfect. Someone had done this deliberately. Someone had used my credentials, my access, my reputation to steal money from the company. Someone had planted false evidence and convinced my colleagues to lie about me. And the only person with enough access, enough authority, and enough knowledge of my work patterns to pull that off was Mr. Grant himself. But why? What did he have to gain from destroying me? That's when I noticed something in the transaction logs they'd shown me during the accusation. A pattern I'd been too shocked to catch in the moment. Every single unauthorized transaction had occurred on nights when Mr. Grant had asked me to stay late working on special projects in his office. Times when he'd kept me busy with busy work while, I now realized, someone was using my workstation to transfer funds. He'd set me up. Deliberately. Methodically. The mentor I'd trusted had been planning this for months. But I still didn't know why. And I had no way to prove it. The next morning, I woke up at 7:30 a.m. out of habit. For a few seconds, everything felt normal. Then I remembered I had nowhere to go. No office. No job. No reputation. I made coffee and opened my laptop. My company email was disabled. My access to financial systems revoked. My professional network on LinkedIn was already showing damage. 3 colleagues had disconnected from me overnight. Word was spreading fast. I did what any desperate person would do. I Googled falsely accused of embezzlement and spent 3 hours reading horror stories about people whose lives were destroyed by false accusations. Some never recovered. Some ended up in prison despite being innocent. Some took plea deals just to avoid worse sentences. That wasn't going to be me. I hadn't spent 20 years building integrity just to watch it disappear because someone decided to use me as a scapegoat. I needed evidence. Real evidence. But how was I supposed to investigate when I had no access to company systems, no allies in the office, and no legal resources? My savings account had about $8,000 in it, enough for maybe 2 months of rent and food if I was careful. Not enough for a decent lawyer. Criminal defense attorneys who handled white-collar crimes charged $300 to $500 per hour. I'd need thousands just for the initial consultation. I was on my own. I started by making a list of everything I knew. The transfers happened from my workstation during specific times. Those times corresponded with nights Mr. Grant kept me late. My colleagues claimed I was acting suspiciously. But who specifically, and what did they actually see? The offshore accounts receiving the money. Who owned them? Mr. Grant's behavior during the accusation. Too calm, too prepared. I needed access to the company's server logs, the detailed records of every login, every file access, every keystroke. Those logs would show if someone else had been using my credentials while I was physically in the building but working somewhere else. But I had no way to access them. I'd been locked out of everything. That's when I remembered Eli. Eli Morales was a 23-year-old IT intern who'd started at Meridian 6 months earlier. Quiet kid, shy, spent most of his time in the server room fixing technical issues no one else could solve. I'd been kind to him when others ignored him, helped him carry equipment once, invited him to join us for lunch when the other analysts excluded him, defended his work when someone criticized his troubleshooting speed. He was also the only person in the building with unrestricted access to server logs. I found his personal email in an old company directory and sent him a message. Eli, it's Daniel Brooks. I know you've probably heard what happened. I didn't do what they're accusing me of. I'm being framed, and I think I know by who. I need help. Specifically, I need access to server logs from the past 6 months. I know this is asking a lot, but you're the only person I trust who can access that information. If you can't help, I understand. Either way, please don't tell anyone I contacted you. Daniel. I hit send and waited. For 3 days, I heard nothing. No response. No acknowledgement. I began to think I'd made a mistake. Maybe Eli would report my message to HR, and I'd face additional charges for attempting to access company information illegally. Then, on Friday evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Daniel Brooks? Yes. Who is this? It's Eli. From Meridian. Don't use my name on any calls or messages. I'm using a burner phone. Eli, thank you for calling. Did you get my? I read your email. And I believe you. Those 4 words, I believe you, nearly broke me. It was the first time in a week that anyone had said them. Why? I asked. Why do you believe me? Because I've been watching the server logs since you got accused. Someone's been covering tracks. Files deleted. Access records modified. Whoever framed you is still actively hiding evidence. Can you see who's doing it? Not yet. But I can see when it's happening. Late at night, outside normal business hours, using administrative override codes that only senior management has access to. Mr. Grant. I can't prove it's him specifically. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Can you get me the original logs before they were modified? That's complicated. Everything goes through multiple backups, but accessing archived backups requires authorization I don't have. If I try to pull them without permission, it'll trigger security alerts. What if you don't pull them directly? What if you just look at them? Screenshot them? Is there any way to see the data without creating a digital trail? There was a long pause. Maybe. Give me a few days. I'll see what I can do. True to his word, 3 days later, Eli sent me an encrypted file containing screenshots of server logs from the nights the embezzlement transactions occurred. What I saw made my blood run cold. On every single night when money was transferred out of client accounts using my credentials, the server logs showed 2 things. My user account was logged in from my workstation on the 14th floor. Mr. Grant's administrative account was logged in simultaneously from the same workstation. Someone with administrative access had been using my computer while I was physically in Mr. Grant's office on a different floor, working on projects he'd specifically assigned to keep me busy. But there was more. The offshore accounts receiving the stolen funds weren't random. Eli had managed to trace the account numbers through international banking networks, and they all led back to shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. Shell companies that shared board members with a private investment firm owned by Jonathan Grant's brother-in-law. Mr. Grant wasn't just framing me for embezzlement. He was actively stealing from his own company, using my credentials as cover, and funneling the money to family members through fake business entities. I finally understood why he'd chosen me specifically. I was the perfect patsy, hardworking, trusted, with access to high-value accounts but no powerful allies to defend me. When the theft was discovered, I'd take the fall while Mr. Grant looked like the vigilant manager who'd caught a dishonest employee. Now I had evidence, but I still had a massive problem. I'd obtained this information through unauthorized access to company systems. If I went to the police with server logs I wasn't supposed to have, I could face criminal charges myself. I needed to expose the truth in a way that forced the company to investigate on their own terms, using their own proper channels. I needed them to see what I'd seen without revealing how I'd seen it. That's when I remembered something Mr. Grant had told me months ago during a mentoring conversation about corporate politics. The board meeting is where real power moves happen, Daniel. Everything else is just theater. If you want to make an impact, you make it when the decision makers are all in the room together. Meridian's quarterly board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Every executive, every board member, every department head, all in one room, reviewing financial reports and company performance. That's where I'd expose him. Publicly. Undeniably. In front of the people who had the power to act on what they learned. But I had less than a week to prepare, and I still had no legal standing to even be in that building. I needed a plan. And I needed it fast. I spent the next 4 days barely sleeping, living on coffee and anxiety, building what I started thinking of as the presentation. A comprehensive, undeniable breakdown of Mr. Grant's embezzlement scheme. But I had problems. Big problems. First problem, I had no legal right to attend the board meeting. I wasn't an employee anymore. Building security had been instructed to call the police if I tried to enter. Second problem, even if I got into the meeting, I had maybe 5 minutes before security dragged me out. I needed to present complex financial evidence in a way that was immediately clear and impossible to dismiss. Third problem, my evidence came from unauthorized sources. If I revealed how I got the server logs, I'd implicate Eli and probably face legal charges myself. I needed help. Real help. I called my mom. Daniel, you sound terrible. Are you sleeping? Not really. Mom, I need advice. How do I fight someone who has all the power? She was quiet for a moment. Your father used to say that powerful people have a weakness. They forget what it's like to be underestimated. They forget that someone with nothing to lose is the most dangerous opponent of all. What does that mean? It means you're not trying to win their game. You're trying to flip the board and make them play yours. She was right. I couldn't fight Mr. Grant using corporate politics or legal procedures. He controlled both. But I could force the truth into the open in a way he couldn't prepare for. I reached out to 3 people. First, I contacted Janet, the receptionist I'd always been kind to. Sweet woman in her 60s who'd worked at Meridian for 30 years. I sent her a carefully worded message asking if she'd be willing to accidentally leave the side conference room door unlocked on Tuesday morning. The room that connected to the main boardroom through an internal door. She wrote back, I don't know what you're planning, Daniel, but I know you're not a thief. Door will be open. Second, I contacted Marcus Chun, a financial journalist I'd met at an industry conference 2 years ago. We'd stayed in touch professionally. I sent him an encrypted file containing the evidence I'd compiled and a message. This is the story of corporate fraud at one of Chicago's biggest investment firms. Can't give you details yet, but if you're outside Meridian's headquarters Tuesday at 11 a.m. with a camera, you'll get the story of your career. He responded in minutes. I'll be there. Third, I called Eli one last time. I need you to do something that could get you fired, I told him. What is it? During Tuesday's board meeting, I need you to remotely access the boardroom's presentation system and stream the meeting live to a private URL. Can you do that without being detected? Probably. Why? Because when I expose Mr. Grant, he's going to claim I'm lying. But if there's a live recording that multiple people are watching in real time, he can't bury the truth. We'll have independent witnesses. Daniel, if I get caught doing this, I know. I'm asking you to risk your career for me. If you can't do it, I understand. When do you need it live? Tuesday, 10:45 a.m. I'll make it happen. Monday night, I didn't sleep at all. I rehearsed my presentation 100 times. I reviewed every piece of evidence. I thought through every possible response Mr. Grant might have and prepared counterarguments. But mostly I thought about my father. I remembered the last conversation I'd had with him before he died. I was 7 years old, and I'd been caught in a lie at school. I'd told my teacher someone else had broken a classroom window when it had actually been me. My father sat me down that evening. Daniel, lying might seem easier in the moment, but the truth always comes out eventually. And when it does, people remember not just what you did wrong, but that you tried to hide it. A man's integrity is the only thing he truly owns. Don't trade it for convenience. I'd carried that lesson my entire life. And now, 15 years after his death, I was going to prove that integrity was worth fighting for, even when the entire world seemed stacked against it. Tuesday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., put on my best suit, the same navy blue suit I'd worn the day I was accused. If I was going down, I was going down looking like I belonged. At 10:30 a.m., I arrived at Meridian's building. Marcus Chin was waiting outside with a camera and a notepad, just like he'd promised. "Whatever you're planning, make it good," he said. "I told my editor I'm covering a major financial crime story. If this turns out to be nothing, it won't be nothing." I walked past the main entrance where security would recognize me and went to the side door Janet had promised to leave open. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The door was unlocked. I slipped inside and made my way to the side conference room. Empty, just like I'd hoped. I could hear voices from the boardroom through the connecting door. The meeting was already in progress. I pulled out my phone and checked the private URL Eli had sent me. The stream was live. At the bottom of the screen, I could see a viewer count. 7 people watching. Eli must have shared it with a few colleagues he trusted. It was time. I took a deep breath, opened the connecting door, and walked into the boardroom. The boardroom went silent the moment I walked in. 12 executives and board members sitting around a massive mahogany table. Mr. Grant standing at the head of the room mid-presentation, a PowerPoint slide frozen behind him showing quarterly revenue figures. "What the hell?" someone said. Mr. Grant's face went pale, then red. "Daniel, you're not supposed to be here." "Security." "I'm not staying long," I said, walking to the front of the room. "I just need 5 minutes to show you something. Then you can decide what to do with me." "This is completely inappropriate," Paul Davidson, the general counsel, said. "You're trespassing. We're calling security right now." "Go ahead," I said, plugging my laptop into the presentation system. "But I promise you, what I'm about to show you is worth the interruption." Miranda from HR was already on her phone. "Security, we have an unauthorized person in the executive boardroom." "Wait," said an older woman I recognized as Diane Morrison, the board chair. 5 minutes. Let him speak. If it's nothing, we'll press charges. If it's something, we'll want to know why." Mr. Grant was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Fear. My hands were shaking as I connected my laptop, but my voice was steady. 3 weeks ago, I was accused of embezzling $247,000 from client trust accounts. The evidence against me seemed overwhelming: transaction logs, witness statements, digital signatures. I was fired, my reputation destroyed, my career ended. I clicked to the first slide, a summary of the accusations against me. But I didn't do it, and I spent the last 3 weeks figuring out who did. Click. Next slide. Server logs. These are server logs from the nights the embezzlement occurred. They show my user account logged in from my workstation. But they also show something else. I zoomed in on the relevant entries, highlighting them in red. Administrative access from a second account, logged in simultaneously on the same computer. Someone with admin privileges was using my workstation while I was physically somewhere else in the building. Murmurs around the table. People leaning forward to see the screen. On each of these nights, I was working late on special projects assigned by my manager. I looked directly at Mr. Grant. Projects that kept me busy in his office on the 12th floor while someone used my computer on the 14th floor to transfer funds. "This is absurd," Mr. Grant said, but his voice was shaky. "You're fabricating evidence. These logs are fake." "They're not fake," I said. "They're from our own backup servers. Easy to verify. Just ask IT to pull the archived records from the dates I've highlighted." Click. Next slide. Shell company registrations. The money was transferred to offshore accounts owned by shell corporations registered in the Cayman Islands. Here are the company registration documents. And here, click, are the board members listed for these shell companies. I let them read the names. Watched their faces change as they recognized some of them. Robert Grant, Michael Chun, Patricia Grant Morrison. All family members or business associates of Jonathan Grant. The room exploded. Everyone talking at once. Mr. Grant shouting that I was lying. Diane Morrison demanding answers. Paul Davidson frantically taking notes. "There's more," I said, raising my voice over the chaos. "The embezzlement didn't start 3 weeks ago. It's been happening for over a year." Click. A spreadsheet showing 18 months of irregular transactions. Small amounts at first. $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Always from accounts I had access to. Always at times when I was working late on projects Mr. Grant assigned. The pattern is consistent and deliberate. "How did you get access to this information?" Paul demanded. "You've been locked out of company systems." I had help from someone who believed I was innocent. Someone who risked their career to help me prove the truth. I saw Eli's face in my mind. Hoped he was watching this. Hoped he understood how grateful I was. "The total amount stolen is closer to $800,000, not $247,000, I continued. The smaller figure was the only amount they could safely pin on me without raising questions about why it took so long to notice. Click. Email records. Here are emails between Mr. Grant and his brother-in-law, Robert Grant, discussing investment opportunities and fund transfers that coincidentally match the dates and amounts of the embezzled funds. Mr. Grant lunged for my laptop. "This is slander. This is." 2 board members physically held him back. "Sit down, Jonathan," Diane said coldly. "I have one more thing," I said. "A recording from last week." This was a bluff. I didn't have a recording, but I needed to see Mr. Grant's reaction. "A recording of you discussing the scheme with Robert Grant, talking about how convenient it was to have someone like me, someone honest and trusted, to frame for your crimes." Mr. Grant's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" We stared at each other. The entire room held its breath. Then Mr. Grant broke. "I want my lawyer. I'm not saying anything else without my lawyer present." And just like that, everyone in the room knew the truth. Diane turned to Paul. "Call the authorities. Now." Security arrived 5 minutes later, not to escort me out, but to detain Mr. Grant. They sat him in a chair, informed him he wasn't free to leave, and stood by while Paul called the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I stood against the wall, watching it all unfold, feeling like I might collapse from exhaustion and adrenaline. Diane approached me. "Mr. Brooks, I owe you an apology." "We all do. I just want my name cleared." "It will be. And we'll be conducting a full internal investigation. If what you've shown us is accurate, and I believe it is, Jonathan Grant will be facing serious criminal charges." The FBI arrived 90 minutes later. They took statements from everyone in the room, seized Mr. Grant's laptop and phone, and began the formal investigation that would eventually uncover the full scope of his crimes. I walked out of that building at 2 p.m., past the security desk where I'd been humiliated 3 weeks earlier, out into the Chicago afternoon where Marcus Chin was waiting with his camera. "Did you get what you needed?" I asked. "Oh yeah," he said, grinning. "But more importantly, did you?" I thought about that question as I walked home. Did I get what I needed? My name would be cleared. Mr. Grant would face justice. The truth had won. But I'd also learned something painful, that trust could be weaponized, that integrity made you vulnerable, and that the people closest to you could be the ones who hurt you worst. 2 weeks later, Mr. Grant was formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The full investigation revealed he'd stolen over $1.2 million across multiple accounts over 2 years. His brother-in-law and 2 other family members were also charged as accomplices. Meridian offered me my job back. Full reinstatement, back pay, a formal apology, and the senior analyst promotion I'd been promised. I declined. Instead, I used my savings and a small business loan to start my own financial consulting firm, Brooks Integrity Consulting. The name wasn't subtle, but it was honest. I specialized in helping small businesses and individuals who'd been victims of financial fraud. People who couldn't afford the big law firms. People who needed someone who understood what it felt like to be powerless against a system that seemed designed to protect the powerful. Eli Morales was my first hire. He'd been quietly let go from Meridian after they discovered he'd accessed the server logs that helped expose Mr. Grant. They couldn't prove he'd given them to me, but they didn't need to. They just wanted him gone. "They did me a favor," Eli said on his first day at my new office, a small space above A. Coffee shop, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I was tired of working for people who valued loyalty to criminals over loyalty to the truth. Within 6 months, we had 12 clients. Within a year, we had 35. Word spread in the business community about the analyst who'd exposed his own boss and started a firm dedicated to financial integrity. Marcus Chen's article about the case won a regional journalism award. He quoted something I'd said during our interview. The hardest battles are fought not against others, but against doubt, betrayal, and the urge to give up. That quote got shared thousands of times on social media. People started reaching out. Others who'd been falsely accused, others who'd been betrayed by mentors, others who felt like giving up but needed to hear that fighting back was possible. 1 year after Mr. Grant's arrest, I received a letter from him in prison. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was handwritten, 3 pages long. In it, he tried to explain why he'd done what he did: gambling debts, bad investments, family pressure, the usual excuses criminals make when they're caught. He claimed he never meant to hurt me specifically, that I was just in the right position at the right time. At the end of the letter, he wrote, "I underestimated you, Daniel. I thought you were just another ambitious kid who'd crumble under pressure. I didn't realize you'd fight back. In a strange way, I'm almost proud of what you've become." I read that last line 3 times, feeling a complicated mix of anger and something I couldn't quite name. Then I threw the letter away. I didn't need his pride. I didn't need his explanations. I needed to move forward. My mom came to visit the office one afternoon, bringing lunch and asking about my newest clients. She looked around at the small space, at the whiteboard covered with case notes, at Eli working intently at his computer. "Your father would be proud," she said, just like she had when I got promoted at Meridian. But this time, it felt different. This time, I'd built something that was truly mine. Something that reflected the values I actually believed in, not just the values that looked good on a resume. "I think I'm proud too," I told her. And I meant it. 2 years after the boardroom confrontation that changed everything, I found myself standing in front of a room full of business students at my old university, giving a guest lecture on professional ethics. The professor who invited me had read Marcus Chen's article and thought my story would resonate with students entering the workforce. I'd been hesitant at first. I wasn't a public speaker, wasn't comfortable being the face of some cautionary tale about workplace betrayal. But as I stood there, looking at faces that reminded me of my younger self, earnest, ambitious, believing that hard work and integrity would be enough, I knew I had to tell them the truth. "Integrity won't protect you from being hurt," I told them. "It won't prevent people from lying about you, betraying you, or trying to destroy what you've built. What integrity does is give you something to fight for when everything else is taken away." I told them about Mr. Grant, about the false accusations, about the moment I realized the man I'd trusted most was the one trying to destroy me. I told them about Eli's quiet courage, about the board meeting, about the terrifying moment when I didn't know if anyone would believe me. But I also told them about what came after. Brooks Integrity Consulting had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We now had a team of 8 people, financial analysts, forensic accountants, former FBI agents who specialized in white-collar crime. We'd helped recover over $5 million in stolen funds for victims of financial fraud. We'd exposed 12 cases of corporate embezzlement. We'd testified in court, advised law enforcement, and built a reputation for being the people you called when everyone else had given up. Eli had become my business partner, co-owner of the firm, and one of the most skilled forensic analysts in the state. The shy intern who'd risked everything to help me had found his calling in helping others do the same. "The point isn't that good always triumphs," I told the students. "Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the bad guys win and the innocent people suffer, and there's no justice at the end. But the point is that you still have to try. Because giving up, accepting the lie, letting the guilty go unpunished, that's how they win permanently." After the lecture, several students came up to ask questions. One young woman, probably 20 years old, stayed until everyone else had left. "Mr. Brooks," she said hesitantly, "my dad was accused of stealing from his company last year. He didn't do it, but he couldn't prove his innocence, and he lost his job and his reputation. He's been depressed ever since, barely leaves the house. I don't know how to help him." I gave her my business card. "Have him call me. Even if we can't take the case officially, we can at least look at what happened and see if there's anything that can be done." She started crying. "Thank you." Everyone else just assumed he was guilty because that's what the company said. No one would even listen to his side. I'll listen, I said. That's what we do. That evening, I met my mom for dinner at our usual spot, a small Italian restaurant near her apartment. She'd fully retired now, spending her time volunteering at the library and taking art classes at the community center. For the first time in her life, she looked relaxed. "How was the lecture?" she asked. "Exhausting. Emotional. But good, I think. The students seemed to really hear what I was saying. Your father would have loved to see you teaching. He always said you had a gift for explaining complicated things in simple ways." I smiled. I got that from him. And the stubbornness. Definitely got the stubbornness from him. "That stubbornness saved you," she said seriously. "When you called me that day, when you'd been accused and kicked out of the office, I was terrified you'd give up. That you'd accept what they said about you just to make the pain stop. I thought about it," I admitted. "There were days when fighting back felt impossible. When I wanted to just disappear and start over somewhere else with a new name. But you didn't. No, because you taught me that integrity is the only thing no one can take from you. They took my job, my reputation, my security, but they couldn't take who I actually was. That was still mine." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your father would be so proud of the man you've become. But more importantly, I hope you're proud of yourself." I thought about that question. Was I proud? 2 years ago, I'd been a financial analyst at a prestigious firm, working for a promotion, believing that success meant climbing someone else's ladder. Now I ran my own small business, worked twice as hard for less money, and spent my days helping people who'd been betrayed by the system I used to be part of. I'd lost the career I thought I wanted, but I'd gained something more valuable: purpose. The knowledge that the work I did mattered, that the battles I fought were worth fighting, that the integrity my father had taught me wasn't just a nice idea, but an actual foundation for building a life. "Yeah, Mom," I said. "I'm proud." Later that night, back at my apartment, I opened my laptop to check emails before bed. One message stood out, from the young woman who'd approached me after the lecture. "Mr. Brooks, I talked to my dad about your offer to help. He cried when I told him someone was willing to listen to his story. He wants to call you tomorrow if that's okay. Thank you for giving him hope. Thank you for proving that some people still care about the truth. Sarah." I sat there for a long moment, staring at that email, thinking about all the paths my life could have taken. All the ways things could have gone differently if I'd made different choices. If I'd never contacted Eli, I might still be presumed guilty, my name permanently associated with a crime I didn't commit. If I'd never walked into that board meeting, Mr. Grant might still be stealing from clients and framing innocent employees. If I'd accepted Meridian's offer to return, I'd be back in the corporate world, successful but always wondering if I could trust the people around me. But I'd made the choices I made, fought the battles I fought, built something new from the ruins of what was taken from me. And now, 2 years later, I was helping others do the same. I typed a response to Sarah. "Have your father call me tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll figure this out together. No one deserves to carry the weight of a false accusation alone." Daniel. As I closed my laptop and got ready for bed, I thought about Mr. Grant one last time. He was 3 years into a 15-year federal prison sentence. His reputation destroyed, his family finances in ruins, his name forever associated with fraud and betrayal. I didn't take joy in his suffering. I didn't feel victorious or vindicated. I just felt grateful that the truth had won. Grateful that I'd had the courage to fight back. Grateful that I'd had people like Eli and Janet and Marcus who believed in me when belief was in short supply. The last thing I did before turning off the light was look at a framed photo on my nightstand. My father and me, taken a few months before he died. 7-year-old Daniel grinning with a baseball glove, his father's hand on his shoulder, both of us squinting into the sun. "I hope I made you proud, Dad," I whispered to the photo. "I tried to do it the way you taught me. The honest way. The hard way. The right way." And then I turned off the light, knowing that tomorrow I'd wake up and keep fighting. For Sarah's father, for the next person who needed help, for everyone who'd ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. Because that's what integrity means. Not just being honest when it's easy, but fighting for the truth when it costs you everything. And that's a battle worth fighting, every single time. Thank you for watching this story. If you've ever been falsely accused, betrayed by someone you trusted, or had to fight for the truth when no one else believed you, I hope this story reminded you that you're not alone. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear that integrity is worth fighting for. Remember, The hardest battles aren't fought against others. They're fought against doubt, betrayal, and the urge to give up. But if you keep fighting, if you hold on to who you are even when everything else is taken away, you can win. Until next time, keep standing up for the truth. Keep fighting the good fight.